I'm Brandon Smith, and I'm the workplace therapist. My entire purpose and passion in life is one singular thing, and that's to help you live a life free from dysfunction. And let's be honest, folks, dysfunction is everywhere. Our bosses, our coworkers, our neighbors, even that grumpy barista that pours your coffee. And sometimes that dysfunction stares back at us in the face when we're getting ready in the mornings and we see ourselves in the mirror. Well, at the end of the day, life and work should not have to suck. The purpose of this show is to help you overcome those roadblocks in your life to help you realize the life you've always wanted. This is the Brandon Smith Show, and I'm your host, Brandon Smith, and the entire purpose of the show is one singular thing, that is to help you live a life that much more free from dysfunction. And so for today, our topic, we're going to talk about the workplace, but we're going to talk about it from a slightly different angle. And I've got an awesome guest I'm about to introduce to talk about this angle. But we're going to talk about the workplace from the perspective of families and how we bring our families and how we grew up and all that stuff and carry it with us on our backs into the workplace. And that creates quite a party. Right, Genie?
It's a fun, dysfunctional party.
It's a fun, dysfunctional party. Yeah. So my guest today is, and I've got your fancy bio here, which you didn't fill out very much, by the way.
I was busy.
You're kind of in trouble.
I got a lot of stuff to do.
She is busy. So Genie Burnett, and you are a licensed psychologist.
Yes.
And you are also the leader of a nonprofit.
Yes. Founder. And executive director.
Oh, and the nonprofit is?
Called the Manna Scholarship Fund.
Manna Scholarship Fund.
Yes, it is.
That sounds pretty awesome.
Well, it is. I had an eating disorder as a kid, and I went through treatment, and somebody helped my parents pay for it. And now what I do is help people with their eating disorder, and if they can't pay for treatment at all levels of care, it's nationwide and then local here in Atlanta. Mm-hmm.
So not just local, but national. Really cool.
That's what national is. Yeah. It's across the country. We go to treatment centers.
Thank you for coming on my show today.
I'm sorry.
This was a great show.
Come on, let's talk about families.
Listen to us next week on the Brandon Smith Show. I am so glad you joined us today.
So tell me, Brandon, are you an only child, second child, middle child? Let's do some therapy.
This is not how this show goes. I told Isaac I was not comfortable sitting this close to you. And now look, here it goes. I am the third. I'm a third
out
child.
Of how many?
3. Both my older brothers were adopted, and they were 12 and 11 years older than me. So I got that.
You're essentially an only child.
Right. I don't fit cleanly in the buckets.
It's all right. I'm the oldest, but my younger sisters are half sisters, and they are 17 and 19 years younger than me.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you're like a big sister / big mama / aunt.
Right. All that. Irritation.
Yeah. Really? I can't imagine.
I know. Right.
I
know.
Be happening.
Come on. We are wasting time. Let's talk about families.
All right. So I will take us down that path.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about, because we were jamming before the show, and you started jamming on kind of family systems and family stuff we bring into the workplace. And I stopped you and I said, that's it. That's the topic. I love it because it's so very true.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about how you see that play out in workplaces, how we bring that baggage, and how we can start to learn a little bit more about that.
Okay. So being a clinical psychologist, I do have, I have the charity I run, but I also have a fair number of clients that come in. And so I will have clients on occasion come in because of workplace stress. And, I have this boss, and oh my gosh, she's such a, and I don't know what to do with her. And so we end up talking about, so my big jam, as you like to call it, is finding out what a person believes about themselves in that relationship. And it usually begins with I am. And so if their boss is, demanding and critical, and then maybe what their belief system is I'm not good enough. And so we talk about, okay, well, where is your power? And then I also draw it into, okay, well, let's talk a little bit about your mom or your dad from, and let's see, like, is this a familiar place? Because typically if something it feels familiar at work, it's because it fits in with this preconceived, pre-developed belief system that stems from our family of origin. And so getting them to connect those two things and then work through the original pain helps to create this emotional boundary moving forward in work.
So it sounds a lot like core needs. Like you're trying to help them figure out kind of what's that core need that they've developed somehow early on.
Well, I don't call it need. I call it a belief.
Okay.
So we know things with our head. We believe things with our heart. And so if we are, if you say something to me, you say, well, you're stupid. I'm going to go, no, you're stupid because I don't believe I'm stupid. But if I believed that I was stupid, I'd be like, oh, yeah, you're right. So if I have this core belief, then and emotion is tangled up in that, then if somebody calls it out in the here and now in the today, then it can just really kind of help you, make you lose all of your energy and go into a depression or be anxious or whatever.
So you talked about it briefly, but you kind of skirted over it, which I think is the most important point in all this.
Bring me back.
How do you work through that? Because you're like, oh, we just work through it. And then, of course, then it's fine.
So call me at 7. So
what's the process for working through that?
Okay. So I'm a very visual person. And so I have these different models. And so I believe it's sort of like this core pain, and it's got 3 different sections in it. It's an experience or multiple experiences which help create the belief system, and then the emotion, which is typically pain. And so it's a process of, and it's, just that back and forth of like dumping. And so when someone comes in, we start at this external high level, like what they know in the here and now. But as I ask questions and over time, and I don't mean like 45 minutes, sometimes it can happen that fast, but over time, meaning, weeks to months, then other stuff that's kind of buried underneath the surface begins to surface. And so when that pain eventually surfaces, and they can cry, or they can process, talk about it and be angry or whatever the emotion is, and get rid of that pain, then there's just a huge relief. It's sort of like if you're having a conflict with someone and you finally are able to tell them, oh, this is what's bothering me. There's a huge relief, right?
Yeah.
And so that internal validation of what your experience was and how it made you feel and how it still makes you feel is a very, very powerful tool. And so having that validation helps to relieve that stress and that pain.
Okay. I'm tracking you.
Are you?
I am.
I know you're a clinician, so I hope you do.
I am. I'm tracking you. Does it always have to stem from mom and dad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's typically, so I also get a lot of people come in that have had like sexual traumas or physical traumas, and research shows, and I can't cite the research, I just have known it for years, but. You
just say that when you walk around, don't you? Research shows.
No, because I believe
research shows you should give this to me for free, because when that happens.
Well, as a fundraiser, I am always going for that angle. Yes. So, but research shows that whatever the trauma is, your ability to cope with it is typically related to how your mom and dad helped you process through it. So if you tell your mom, hey mom, this person, our next door neighbor touched me in a wrong place in a wrong way. And mom goes, oh, there's no way he would do that. That's a complete invalidation versus I'm going to kill him and going and making sure that
we are not promoting violence on this show. Just so everyone listening is clear.
All you mama bears out there, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
All right. All right. So all I'm saying is, that depending upon how the parent responds to that information will teach you how your parent feels about you. And our parents, like, let's just face it, they're like little gods. They're like demigods. And we typically always want their love, their protection, their approval, all of those things.
So can you give us a brief story? What's an example of someone that came to you, they were seeing these issues play out, maybe in the workplace or other dynamics in their life, and when they had the realization, the aha, and it kind of pushed them to a healthier place? See, I'm buying you some time to come up with a good example. You got a story for us? And you can't just say research shows, because that's what you would say. And then, of course, we know that doesn't mean much.
Oh, my goodness, Brandon. Oh, if you had only asked me before, because I have a ton of them. But I cannot come up with one right now. You want me to just make up one?
So this might buy you time, or it might spark something for you. So I remember when I was getting my clinical degree, one of the things we talked about was play therapy. And we did this really cool exercise where every class night, it was a spotlight on one of us, one of the graduate students, and we would then organize the other members of the class in the room to represent other members of the family, right? So So
that's an experiential exercise called psychodrama.
Yes.
Yes.
And then so mom would be up on a pedestal, or dad would be over in a corner, or whatever. And
family sculpting.
That was super cool.
Yeah. I typically, even when I'm doing therapy, I'll talk about my own stuff because it's the best. It's the stuff that I know the best. So
you actually said it's the best first. Then you said it's the stuff you know the best. Sorry, I just had to call that out. That was so fun.
He is banking on my narcissism. I can own my narcissism. I think it's funny. Both of my parents have a little touch of narcissism. What are you going to expect?
This is what happens with two therapists in a room. It's really fun.
They call each other's crap out, right?
Super fun.
So I don't know if I have enough time.
We've got all the time in the world.
Isaac, I hear you laughing.
Yes.
Okay. So when I was going through my treatment for my eating disorder, I actually went through a 5.5-day program, and I walked in and I was purging every single day. And when I got in there, that's exactly what we would do, where there was about groups of like 15 of us. And every day we would go through multiple levels of multiple people's issues. And because I was the youngest in the room, I was always the inner child. Those of you that don't know what an inner child is, you've got it. You've got one. It's that wounded part of you, whether she's 8 or he's 15 or something, that is sort of carrying stuff for you. And so not
to be confused with the spirit animal. That's a completely different thing.
I don't get it.
I'm just saying.
I don't get it.
Isaac gets it. He's laughing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, good for you, Isaac.
Okay, so inner child.
Yes. So basically, the therapist that was running the group got me to, I must have been very, very well defended. And so he even took me to lunch. He was he was trying to needle in on me because I was such a good hero child, and I was funny, and I was all these things because I was an only child. And so he and I started talking, and he started needling in on my relationship with my father and how my parents divorced and my dad left town, not skirted town, but he moved back to Memphis. We lived in Kansas City. And so I was left without a dad. And so that created some pretty deep wounds inside of me. And so when we got in there and we were, creating my psychodrama, I remember there were lots of like ropes off of me. Like I was doing all these things. I was a gymnast and I was good in school, all these different things. And so people would start pulling on them. And and so what it did was it brings the emotion like from the past in the present. And so I just got really, really angry. And so I remember he got the rope, got me out of the ropes, and he gave me a bataka bat. You know what a bataka bat is. Mm-hmm. And I beat the crap. Can I say crap?
You can.
Out on a chair, but I beat my dad up on a chair. I just was mad, and it got the pain, it got the anger, it got the hurt out. And I walked out of there, and I was 18 years old, and I'm a little bit older than that now, and I've never purged again.
Awesome.
And so when you do something like that, and you can, and so I readily encourage my clients to emote and feel and get angry. We'll go outside and we'll throw rocks into a big gully and like just screaming. And so I encourage them to do a lot of emoting. And I even teach them, like, if you're at home and you're mad, don't hurt anything, hit the bed or scream into a pillow or something to where you're getting that extra pain out.
Yeah. Awesome. Powerful. Okay. So stay tuned. We're about to go to break. And then when we come back, I want to pick up where we left off on this. I got a few more questions around this, other ways we can process stuff. And then I want to give you a few scenarios and see like what would you do? What would you do in this situation? What do you think kind of the best path forward would be for this person?
Okay.
And hypothetical person, of course.
I would do a shot of vodka.
Again, we do not promote drinking at the workplace or beating your boss. Just so you know. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Job plus the right culture plus the right boss equals workplace happiness. The number one reason people leave jobs is problems with their boss. A horrible boss can make us dread every Monday, but an amazing boss can make us so excited to work that we'd go in on weekends. Finding your perfect boss is not only possible, it's one of the most impactful steps you can take in crafting your perfect career. Visit theworkplacetherapist.com and click on guides to learn how to find and get your perfect boss, whether that means making the decision to move on or turning your current boss into the perfect leader you want them to be. Our bosses have so much influence over our work and our whole day. Working for the right boss alone can be a winning career strategy.
Welcome back to the Brandon Smith Show. I'm your host, Brandon Smith. We're just coming back from break. I've lost all control of this show. Genie, when we went to break, you were talking about some of your own personal experiences and how you kind of processed through stuff and what that was like for you, and how that just that one powerful moment, how it changed your life.
100%.
So when you think about other ways for people to do this, are there if they don't have the ability to see a therapist right now, or they're not comfortable, what are good first steps?
Yeah, it's great. It's a great question. So one of the things that I even encourage my clients to do is write. So the thing about, I don't know, like a lot of people I know, they get anxious. And so these thoughts swirl around in their head. And it's like our brains can only hold so much. I know we only use 10% of our brain. However, I encourage people that thoughts and feelings are energy. And so when the energy is swirling around in you and either causing anxiety or depression, that it's really important to dump it. And a lot of times that's what, like if somebody is really, really anxious and they start coming to see me, it may take us 6 to 8 sessions for them to dump everything that they're carrying. before we can actually start doing therapy.
Mm.
And so the important thing is dump it. That can be in a painting, that can be in drawing, it can be in writing. And so I always encourage people to write down text, however they want. And if they know that it's going somewhere, I mean, they can write it in a journal, that's fine. But they can also, if they have a friend or someone that they trust, they can write it and send it to them. And then that way they know that somebody else is helping to carry that information for them.
Okay, and just to be clear, the stuff that we could dump are things like thoughts, beliefs, and feelings.
Yes.
Any of those, right, are all fair.
Yep.
Should we be looking for patterns, or in the dumping process, don't go so far as looking for patterns? Just get it all out.
I think that, well, let's create a scene. All right. So let's say that a woman, 35 years old, comes in and she's having problems with her female boss. Okay. So what I might say to her, if I know I have 3 sessions and that's it, I might say, I want you in the next 2 weeks to write a series of letters that you are going to write to your boss, but you're never going to send them. Right. So I want you to write a letter, and then I want you to put it away. And I want you to wait a couple of days. And then I want you to write another letter and put it away. Don't go back and read it, and just write a series of letters and bring the letters in. And typically what we see is the emotional content, and just write whatever you want. If you want to curse it or whatever, like just write whatever you want. And so you have this series of letters that goes typically from emotional to logical. And then the other thing that you might, like when they bring them in, we might look at, okay, what are the themes in these letters? We'll sit down, and I always have my clients read their letters. I never read their stuff.
Nice.
Because it's their owning their own stuff, right? Yeah. And so they will have this series of letters. And so I might write down some themes. Okay, well, what do you think is the main theme of this letter? Are there 2 themes? Are there secondary things? And so we start writing a list of just themes. And then I'll say, okay, does this relate to anybody else in your life? Personal. Oh, it's kind of like my mom, or it's kind of like my grandma, and so then that is the bridge that takes us to the deeper level stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's just one thing.
That's great. Awesome. Okay. So we still have some time left.
Oh my God. What are we going to do?
You are trapped. Oh, I've got things.
Ask me.
Okay. So I'm going to give you some typical workplace scenarios that I see. Okay. And I want to get your perspective on what you think might be going on.
Yes, sir.
So I'll start with our first one.
Yes.
And our first one is the narcissistic boss. I think that's a pretty common one.
Male or female?
Oh, I'm going to flip that back to you. Why does that matter? Tell me a little bit more. Say more about that.
Okay, Brandon. So it's going to depend. I mean, it really, everything pulls. I mean, gender has everything to do with, does it pull for mom? It really, it's not necessarily even the gender. It's the energy, right? So let's say you have a female boss, but she's got this really controlling, demanding, like she is more, feels more like she's got male energy, right? So that might actually pull for your father, or if your mother has male energy. So that's the underlying process that really could pull for who it connects with.
Okay. All right, here's another one. And it's actually, there's.
You didn't even give me a scenario.
Well, I gave you a little scenario. I said narcissistic boss. I guess that's not a scenario. That's a character.
That's a person.
Okay, here's a better scenario.
Yes, sir.
All right, so you'll see behind me, there is a vampire bobblehead. Okay, and so that represents...
It's the bobblehead. I got to see that. Okay, go ahead.
This represents an emotional vampire. And so we often see these people, they're in meetings, they will consume a lot of airtime. You literally feel yourself getting exhausted while they speak, and you can see them getting more and more high as they speak. They always speak up. They're always blowing up other people's ideas, and they're always kind of derailing meetings.
That sounds like the narcissistic boss.
It is, but they're not necessarily in charge.
Right.
So the difference is these people are not always in charge.
Okay, but they're still a narcissist.
Yes. So you would use this. You would look at the same kind of thing where.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on, what is the function of their behavior? What are they trying to get? What is their need? Going back to your terminology. So if they need to prove to the boss, i.e. mom or dad, that they're the best and they have the most energy around this and they're the ones, there's always an underlying reason. And so they could be a narcissist, they could be a sociopath, and they could be, using this medium to get the attention that they didn't get as a child, to prove something because they don't feel good enough. And typically people that are narcissistic are in deep, you talk about deep, deep, deep chasms of pain, and they can't tolerate it. They don't know how to deal with it. And so they have all this underlying deep pain that they typically, it's like, the deeper the pain, the greater the grandiosity. And so they are trying to cope with that pain. And so they use this medium where they have all this attention because maybe they were neglected as a child.
That's super profound. You should do this for a living.
Really? You think I could get paid for that?
I think so. Really is though. That's really cool. Okay, how about here's a different kind of character type.
Yes,
okay?
sir.
This is the person who doesn't want to take personal responsibility for anything. It's never her or his fault. Now, the other challenge, here's what I find.
I would say they're bipolar.
Yeah. Wow.
I like to I don't like to label. I use labels to help understand.
So in that category of folks, I see sometimes they'll exist more often or gravitate more towards nonprofit world. Because there's more of first of all, nonprofits, almost all nonprofits have a kind of a rescuing business model underneath it, right? We're gonna make things better. We're gonna rescue, but the downside of that is sometimes the people working in it expect to also be rescued, and so there can be this rescuing codependency that occurs, which creates a ton of burnout. Some of the most burnout organizations I work with are nonprofits. So when you see someone that's like, it's not my fault, it's their fault, or you got to go fix this, or there's more kind of resentment because they're not being rescued, where do you go with that?
Well, I tend to, because we'll have clients that have eating disorders that have learned through their life to be victims. And so I would call that a victimization mentality.
Fair. Yep.
And so, and they make my skin crawl. Because I've had victims in my personal life. And so what I encourage them to do is look at their part of the process, their reaction. And as I probably can tell, I'm a pretty it's just on the table. I'm just going to say it. And I call them out. Okay. That is a victimization statement. That's a victimization thought. Why are you wanting to put yourself in this position as a victim? Like, why do you need to be a victim? And are you incapable of taking care of yourself? And let's turn this around. Let's own your responsibility, like just your part. And once you become aware of your part in the responsibility and what you can control, it typically is a very validating place for them to be, because they can say, well, all right, now I can at least choose how am I going to respond to this person.
And you've seen people be able to make that shift.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That's powerful.
They will, in fact, that's a victimization statement. Let's rephrase that. And so they will, the beauty in my job is being able to see them catch themselves. I know I'm sounding like a victim right now. So once it starts with awareness, and then they can start catching themselves, then they say, all right, where is my power? What can I literally do? Okay, if I can't control his behavior, then how can I respond in a different way that can influence his behavior?
Awesome. Okay. We're running out of time.
Wow. Okay.
So there's time for my last question. I ask every guest this question.
Oh no.
One life hack to help us make our lives a little less dysfunctional, either personally or professionally. One life hack. And it can be a simple tactical thing like, gosh, get 7 hours of sleep every night or whatever it is.
Here's one of my little sayings, right? And it goes back to something I've already talked about. Write a book, don't read a book.
Write a book, don't read a book.
Write your stuff out.
We do not promote illiteracy on this show. Just so everyone knows.
Oh, the drama. You must be an only child.
I told you, I'm like this weird hybrid.
A functional only child. That's what
functional. On the spectrum of dysfunctional, somewhere in there.
But seriously, like when people are frustrated, it's important to, when you have all that power and I mean all that all those feelings and the power, like you've got all this stuff surging through you and the emotion and the all those experiences, writing them down will help to decrease your anxiety. It will help to decrease your depression. And then I would say once you figure out some of that stuff, then maybe go seek it out in a book and read a little bit more to educate yourself. But I am not the kind of person that just sends somebody to read a book. I make them write one first.
That's beautiful. Again, profound. For those of you who are listening to the show, Genie just made a little heart over her heart and then blew up the heart.
Like it's exploding with love.
It is. You're awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the show. So if people want to learn more about you and what you're up to or connect with you or follow you, where can they go?
Well, Facebook, my profile is open. It's Genie Burnett.
Genie with a G.
Genie with a G, like the garage door opener. Mm-hmm. And you can go to our website, and it's manafund.org, and learn more about the nonprofit. And you can find me there too.
Awesome. Thank you for coming
Thanks. On. All right.
And keep up the fight and continue to face dysfunction and look it in the eye.
And go.
And make faces at it just like Genie just did. Genie like the garage door opener. And listen to us every week. You can follow us on Facebook.com/Braden Smith WPT for workplace therapists, or Twitter at the WP Therapist. And of course, iTunes.thebrandonsmithshow.com. And until next week, have an awesome week and an awesome life.